Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's fire episode of the Xbox Factor podcast. I am one of your hosts, Mr. Boomstick XL, and my goodness, do we have a show lined up for you. Not only do we have an all-star cast of podcasters, but we also have a ton of incredible topics that are going to fill an easy 2 hours, and there's going to be a tremendous amount of conversation that we're going to be having. So let's get into the introductions first, and then we'll start breaking down these topics, which again are going to have you definitely super stoked to be an Xbox fan. And we're going to start with the cog that keeps this show rolling each and every week, and now twice a week until launch of the Series X and S. Please welcome Chef Zemi Games.
I don't know about chef, but I do like to cook. I really like to eat. Let me tell you, I made some absolutely delicious fudgy brownies last night.
And did you do a video is what I want to know.
No, I didn't. But they were delicious. I had like a little tiny piece because I am watching the weight. So I had a little tiny piece, and probably after this podcast, I'm going to run down there and get me another little tiny piece. But man, I can't wait to jump into the show. So much is happening with Xbox right now. We're so close to the release of these consoles, and yeah, I can't wait to jump into these topics, man.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty unbelievable that in just about 26 or 27 days, we're going to have not one, but two new consoles from Xbox. But we're also going to have 2 days later, the PlayStation 5 and both of their helpings in the digital and disc version. And it is a very exciting time. Also, a quite expensive time for gamers. But thank you so much for being here as always. So let's introduce our very special guest. Now, he's making, I think this is his third or fourth appearance. He apparently has enjoyed himself so much that he jumped at the chance to be on again. 3-Bit, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, glad to be here. I think this is my third show.
Yes.
Work has been ramping up at the studio. Essentially, at my job, we're contracted out to different studios, game studios. I've been working on some stuff for 2K games, which has been fun. But other than that, I'm ready to get into these topics. A lot of stuff has been happening.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for being here, taking the time out of your busy day to hang out with us. This is going to be a very fun conversation. Next up, you know him as someone that's on loan from PlayStation Nation. It definitely got a rise out of him today with the UI reveal from Sony. Please welcome Mr. Badbit.
Hi, hello. I do need to let you all know that this audio recording is being recorded.
Cerny
is listening.
Sony is listening. That's right.
And I got a text before the show. He said, "You better be on your best behavior." And then he gave me a devil horn emoji.
Yeah, I have multiple is recording emojis as well.
Yeah. He gave me multiple ear emojis and then devil horns. So like everything's on the line, guys. These bad boys right here, they're on the line.
Well, we're going to make sure that you stay on the line and don't go off kilter, because we certainly want you to come back. Next up, you know him as one of the up-and-coming content creators I say are on the rise, and you should be subbed to, because his content is thought-provoking and, more importantly, #fun. Please welcome Boxer Bear. You know him as Archimedes.
What's up? Thank you for having me again on the show. I'm all fired up today. Had so many discussions on Twitter today, so I'm ready to talk Xbox. Let's do it.
Well, yes, and thanks so much for being here. Yeah, this is going to be a very heavily opinionated show. But again, we have a lot of content to get into. So let's get into our last podcaster. And this is also someone that has exploded on the scene. As a matter of fact, he worked so hard in the last couple of weeks, he might have put himself into a potential coma. Please welcome back. Hopefully his batteries recharged. VJ, what's going on, brother? How you feeling?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks for having me on again, Boom. I won't hold anything up, so we can roll into the topics. Thank you.
Well, listen, it's great to have you back here. Hopefully, like I said, you had your batteries recharged, because you were definitely putting the nose to the grindstone for sure. But listen, folks, let's get into the first topic. Now, listen, one of the biggest criticisms for Microsoft fans, or Microsoft that the fans have thrown at Xbox this entire generation, was its lackluster amount of first-party studios when compared to Sony. Now, when Phil Spencer was promoted in late 2017, on of course one of the Achilles heels that he promised that he would fix was the first-party situation, and obviously it has drastically been rectified, and now they're sitting at a total of 23 first-party studios with 35 plus teams making games right now. Directly after the ZeniMax Bethesda studio deal, Satya Nadella, head of Microsoft, was interviewed by CNET, and this is what he had to say. You can't wake up one day and say, let me build a game studio. The idea of having content so we can reach a large community is important. That's why Microsoft will consider buying even more video game companies in the future. Now, right after, on the heels of that, Phil Spencer got involved in the conversation, and he also reiterated the fact that, yes, more studio acquisitions were coming. Now, obviously, we're going to be talking about the rumor that has been floating around since Tuesday afternoon, where the next Microsoft acquisition appears to be coming much sooner than later. Now, the question is, how soon is that acquisition going to be upon us? Now, I will say this. I have it on good authority, and it comes from a trusted source, which, of course, will remain nameless. I've been working with them behind the scenes for a couple of months now, and they have not let me down. And I can assure you that the information I'm about to spill is pretty credible. I can't say who they're going to purchase. I can say what was depicted to me, and the exact words said, the Bethesda deal is going to look small compared to what Microsoft has up their sleeve. Holy shit is what I said. Now, when is this big event supposed to happen? Well, we have news today, thanks to Archimedes, that just dropped this while we were talking privately before the show went live, that on the 9th of November, one day before the launch of the Xbox Series X and S, we are getting XO20. Now, I have been told, and of course through my connections, that you can expect this big announcement to come the last week of October, potentially the first week of November. And now it seems likely that the big announcement could potentially come at XO20, which again is one day before the launch of the Series X and S. And you know what? It sounds like my connection might have been right. I say that because if you guys and gals recall, right before pre-orders went live on Tuesday, we got the big news on that Monday morning that Microsoft had purchased ZeniMax and Bethesda. And what do you think it did to the pre-orders? It sold them out in seconds because people saw the commitment from Phil Spencer and Microsoft, and it got people that were potentially on the fence of buying an Xbox and maybe waiting to saying, and I've gotten numerous DMs that told me, hey, Boom, just want to let you know, I tuned into your show and I immediately ran to go reserve my Xbox Series X or S because holy cow, Microsoft is dropping bombs. So, okay, again, this is a lot to get into, and we have a big panel. So I'm going to start with Zemi Games first. Zemi, listen, when you look at what Microsoft is doing, I can say that out of the entire campaign of 2020 being the shit year that it is, I just want to equate this to video games. Microsoft has just been hitting home run after home run. Now, granted, and I have this in my notes, yes, the Halo Infinite hiccup was a bit of a misstep, sure. But I think everything else that they have done, all the transparency, all of the acquisitions, all of the fan-related information, the Xbox Wire exposés, the forthcomingness of all of their brass has been nothing short of an epic year for the company. And obviously, some people would suggest that the cherry on top of this delicious banana float sundae would be the release of the Series X and S, but that does not seem to be just just the cherry. We may get some sprinkles on here through another huge acquisition. What are your thoughts on, and more importantly, your theories on who they could pick up, but when this is going to come and be announced.
Well, I have no idea what a banana float sundae is, but that sounds absolutely delicious, Boom. You know, I think, you know, what a lot of people kind of maybe haven't recognized yet, and I'm sure a lot of people have probably definitely recognized this, is that, you know, as Microsoft has said, their main competition, their main competitor, they don't view as PlayStation anymore. They view it as Google, they view it as Amazon, and of course they're, you know, eventually going to view it as being Apple once they start taking gaming seriously. And, you know, Google and Amazon, they're both trillion-dollar companies, same as Microsoft, and they have a lot of buying power. And so, you know, Xbox, of course, is going to go out and buy as many, you know, publishers as they feel they need to ensure, you know, you know, their future company, right? Their future standing in the games industry. And, you know, so them buying these companies is absolutely critical to, you know, playing, you know, or maintaining competition between Google and Amazon and all of these other companies that I think are eventually going to start buying up and gobbling up a bunch of studios and developers and publishers as well. Overall, you know, I'm actually really excited for this. I mean, you know, I remember what 2013 was like, the dark days that we all like to kind of, you know, forget ever happened, and to see where they're at now is just super exciting, and I really love to see it as, you know, a huge Xbox fan. You know, as far as who they're going to acquire, you know, out of the information that you've given me, you know, of it being, you know, bigger, well, you've given us all now, of it being, you know, a bigger studio or a bigger acquisition than what they did with Bethesda, you know, I wouldn't be shocked if it was a Japanese studio, either Capcom, Square Enix, or Sega, right? Because all three of those companies are absolutely really huge, you know, companies by size, and they all have an amazing lineup of games and franchises that they own. And we also know that Japan is a huge market that Xbox is looking to penetrate, you know, coming into this next generation. And it's also a really important market, especially for mobile gaming. And it's a market that they haven't been able to penetrate before. So them getting either Capcom, Square Enix, or Sega would really help to cement their placing over in that region. But then there's also, you know, there's also WB Games in the back of my mind. And I know that WB has came out and they've said that they're no longer looking to sell WB games. But still, like, this purchase would be absolutely huge. And after thinking on it for a while, I think in a lot of ways it would be bigger than Bethesda, because the size of these franchises that they would potentially be getting, you know, like all of the DC, you know, universe, Harry Potter, Mortal Kombat, possibly
all the Lego games,
but then also possibly Game of Thrones, because that is owned by HBO, and HBO is owned by Warner Brothers, right? So, you know, there's, you know, I think even Lord of the Rings, I could be mistaken, but like the size of these franchises that they could get from WB is huge. And to be able to take that away from Google and Amazon and Apple and all of these other companies that are, I believe, eventually going to start going out and using their money to buy as many of these companies as possible to become more competitive in the games industry, I think is really important. And that would be a really big grab for Xbox. But overall, I'm excited with what the Xbox brand is doing. I think their acquisitions make sense. And I think that it's something that they have to do. And I think it's something that we're going to see Google and Amazon and all these other companies do, because they have to do it to maintain, you know, being, you know, a competitive company in the games industry where gaming is going. It's shifting more away from consoles. I've actually said this in a couple of videos. The console war is over. The service wars have just begun. Mm-hmm. And I truly believe that. I believe that we are shifting slowly away from consoles and into more of a service territory for gaming. Very similar to what has happened with a lot of the TV industry and the movies industry. being kind of taken over by your Hulus and your HBO Maxes and your Netflix and these types of companies, I think that is, generally speaking, what consumers want. And I think that is the direction that the games industry is going in. And to support that, they need content. And what better way of getting content than getting acquisitions?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. And listen, at the end of the day, Microsoft has already let us know that there's going to be other consoles after the Series X and S. So that's great. That's great news, and should put a lot of people's fears in the back of their minds, because these new consoles are going to be around for at least 5 to 7 years, potentially more. Because obviously, when the Xbox One released right alongside the PlayStation, it was old technology. There's no doubt about it. And this time around, they are ahead of the curve. Whereas you can see that the Xbox Series X, in regards to its power, are doing things that even PC isn't doing. So they obviously, that part, the hardware aspect has been future proof. But for Microsoft, their so-called quote unquote game plan is to keep content coming into Xbox Game Pass. And like I said, they have confirmed that there are over 20 million. I think that they're closer to 25. They just haven't announced it yet. And I think that by the end of the year, this is just me spitballing, and of course it's my opinion, they could potentially be closer to 30 because of the amount of deal, the value proposition, especially nowadays with the way people are losing jobs and the way COVID has affected people financially. Microsoft has made it very easy to be a gamer. And be an Xbox gamer. And you know what? I want to go to Archimedes on this, because obviously, Boxer Bear, right before we went live, we were having a conversation and we were going back and forth about what, and I'm interested for you not only to talk about the acquisition potential that we're currently discussing, but you had said something about you've never paid cheaper to play games. I kind of want you to reiterate that and just kind of talk about that for a second.
Yeah. Okay, then I put the acquisitions on hold for a second, because we were discussing the way how Microsoft and Sony are approaching the next generation and gaming right now. And with Game Pass, Microsoft has made gaming cheaper than ever before. That's what I've been saying in our discussion before, and I stand by that statement, because if you look at the value that you get with Game Pass, you basically don't have to buy any games anymore. It's $15 a month, and you are good with hundreds of games. And with those 23 studios, we have a steady flow of, we have talked about that, 6 to 10 games per year right now, and that making gaming cheaper than ever before. And that's the thing. It took me a while to adjust my mind to that. That gaming is now really cheaper than ever before, and suddenly it bothers me that I have to pay other games full price. This is just what happened. I wasn't bothered by paying $70. Here in Germany, we always had a price of $70 already. It's now going to be $80 with the PlayStation. It starts to bother me. I have paid full price for a game since the 80s, since I've started gaming. But now I don't have to do that anymore on the Xbox platform. And suddenly, I have my issues with paying full price for a game on other platforms. That's just what Microsoft did. They changed the game. They changed my mindset. It starts to bother me that I have to buy a new controller on the new PlayStation. It's something we have always been doing. They just do what they have ever done over the last. This is the 5th console for them now, and it's been always the same. And the first 3 Xboxes were also the same, but the 4th one is different. I don't have to buy new accessories. I don't have to buy the games. I don't have to throw away or sell my old games, because I can keep them and I can keep playing them in a better version. And all these things, what Microsoft has been doing is really changing my mindset of how gaming should be. And that's now I want to come to the acquisitions, and that's why I think it's a good thing if Microsoft will acquire even more publishers, because first, I'm a little bit selfish. I don't want to pay for games from other publishers. I want to have them in Game Pass. I want to save that money. That's one thing. But the good thing is the more Microsoft grows their Game Pass subscription service, the more pressure they put on Nintendo and Sony, especially Sony. Nintendo is always somehow in their own sphere. In their,
they've always driven in their own
whatever
way.
they want. They can do whatever they want.
Exactly. So, but it puts a lot of pressure on Sony, and that is what we need right now. Sony has become the market leader, and rightfully so. They became the market leader by delivering great games, good services at a good price, but that game has changed now, and with the next generation, this is a completely different story now. And now suddenly we have other players as well. Luna is the best example. Luna is extremely cheap. It is so cheap.
$6 a month.
5, 6 in the US. Here it's 5. It's really so cheap that when I browse through my Amazon Prime app and I see a movie and I want to rent a movie, that's the same price than a 1 month gaming subscription.
Yes,
that is insane. And this is what Microsoft has initiated with that Game Pass, and fully with Semi here. It will be a war of subscription services, not console wars. And we are getting new players we haven't even mentioned. Everyone is talking about Apple. I don't know how competitive Apple will be in the gaming market, but there's another competitor coming from China very strongly, and that is Tencent.
Yes.
And now if we look at our gaming landscape, I'd rather buy Microsoft, the big publishers, or Sony for that matter, than Tencent. Yeah, and all these new players will put a lot of pressure on Sony, and it hopefully will force Sony to rethink their way of how they approach their business model. It is not modern and not up to date anymore in the year 2020 to charge more for games when your main competitor is charging less for games than ever before. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see whether we get that announcement before launch, like the rumor is. If everyone has seen it today on Twitter, there was a leak. I don't know how credible it is, but Tim Doc seems to believe it. So, and he's usually a good source.
Yes.
That XO was supposed to be on 7th of November, and it got moved to 9th of November. Now, let's hope we get more infos there. If not, maybe we will get that later this year or early next year. At some point, I think they will announce their new acquisitions. It's always difficult with these acquisitions because there are so many legal things involved that you have to make sure and ensure and get approved before you can announce that stuff. And I don't know whether they make the timeline to 9th of November, where let's assume that there will be the XO. I've been suggesting that for like forever, that in the week before the launch, we will get the big announcements to have the hype at the maximum when the console actually comes out. And yeah, we will see whether we get that announcement of a new acquisition there or early next year. I've been also hearing a couple of things from different sources, trusted and not so trusted, but there is a picture now in my mind what Microsoft might do. Let's see what we will get.
It's certainly going to be interesting. You know, I want to bring 3-Bit into the conversation because I know you have a lot to say, and I'm interested to hear your opinion on the acquisition and how they're going to position it. But I just have to catch up with some of these super chats because there's been quite a few of them. We have Still Regular dropping the first super chat of the day. Hey, dude, first of all, thank you so much for not only being here, but showing your generosity. He says something really cool. He says, I'm finally able to catch the show live. Love the podcast and panel. Keep up the great work. Hashtag power your dreams. Hashtag bring the heat. Well, dude, thank you so much for being here. And I'm glad that you are enjoying the content. And a very good friend and a generous friend of the show, Pixelbit G, drops a $5 super chat and says, it's absolutely idiotic that Minecraft RT isn't at launch. A launch game for Series X makes no sense. Expected it at the minimum. Yeah, I don't listen. Is it disappointing? For sure. Is it groundbreaking? I guess some people might think
Minecraft RT.
Yeah, that's the
ray tracing, the ray tracing version of Minecraft.
Yeah.
It's a very good question. I've been asking this myself.
Yeah,
because
it's for one of the first things they showed off.
Exactly,
yeah.
Boom. Yeah.
So I mean, again, is it on the lines of Halo? No, but I think that it's certainly
Minecraft is bigger than Halo. Let's be real.
Well, no, for sure.
It in regards to the size of the IP, for sure, but ray tracing, the aspect is not there at launch. That is definitely a little thought provoking, and I'm hoping they will address that. Maybe we'll get that in the launch window potentially. A good friend and generous friend of the show, Robert Jones, drops a very generous $15 super chat and says, "My guess for acquisition." Hold on just a sec there, Robert. He says this. My guess for the acquisition would be From Software. Wow, that would be big. If they were able to get that. Kirby Louise, a very good friend of the show who popped on Tuesday's special edition episode of the Xbox Factor podcast, says this after dropping very generous $5 super chat. Speaking of Sega, PSA, they are giving out Sonic 2 and Knights for free on Steam. 2 fantastic games. Go to Sega's 60th site to get them. Oh, thanks for the information, dude. That's awesome. Nightwolf 3186, another generous friend of the show, drops an outstanding $10 super chat and says, "Great to see Boom and panel. Can I just say, with less than a month ago, how excited and giddy are we all just to be gamers right now? Love you guys. Have an outstanding show." Well, we love you too, brother, and thank you so much for not only being here, but obviously donating to the channel. We also have Gaming Forte. Oh my God. Hey, Gaming Forte. Thanks so much for being here, brother. And this is someone that you should definitely be sub to because his channel is exploding on the scene. He drops very generous $2 super chat, says, "Boom, Destiny 2 on Xbox Series X will have FOV slider. OMG." Yeah, dude, I read that today, and that is a big, big deal. We also have Eugene Avaceto drops a very generous $5 super chat, says hashtag Corey Fear. Thanks so much for that. We also have Sean Carpenter, another generous friend of the show, drops a $2 super chat and says, "No more info on Scorn. That is coming in 2021 from what I understand." We have Bando Fox drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, "Love donating any news." He says, "Love donating any news on Apex Legends will run." They haven't said anything, but I would imagine that it's going to have all the bells and whistles that you would imagine, especially because some of the older games are going to see a huge boost. Some games, like they talked about the other day, Fallout 4 going from 30 frames to 60 frames, which is pretty awesome. Smitty Smith bringing us back to church once again, drops an outstanding $2 super chat and says, "Salute to the panel and chat, the Book of X." Well, thank you for that. Listen, folks, as we close in on 600 people already here, which is pretty epic. I want to go to 3-bit. Now, 3-bit, here's the thing. We have been hearing from trusted industry insiders. As a matter of fact, our very good friend of this show, Randall Thor 19, did a video yesterday that was talking about the potential acquisition of a big studio, and we're starting to hear this more and more. Now, I don't think it's going to be a studio. I have it, like I said, on good authority that it's going to be a publisher, and I think it's going to be big. And I think when people find out what it is, if what has been relayed to me is true, OMG is all I can say. And yes, it is bigger than even Bethesda, and that is hard to top. For you, are you happy to see Microsoft really digging their heels in the sand to tell Xbox gamers and potentially new Xbox gamers that not only is Xbox the best place to play, but it's the most affordable place to play with these acquisitions that will go into Game Pass.
Yeah, I guess Phil Maximus Aurelius Spencer, as King would put it. I believe whatever their next acquisition is, it'll bring an overall solidarity to the already humongous studio count for Microsoft, right? They're the home of Western RPGs now, with the purchase of Bethesda, now owning properties of RPG titles such as Fallout, Elder Scrolls, and Obsidian. They kind of have the better competitive MLG market of Halo and Gears, and then the best racing game with Forza. So further acquisitions are probably diving into genres that are not yet solidified for them. So it's fun to speculate, right, on which areas is Microsoft weak, or what areas is Microsoft lacking in, because I believe they're weaker in terms of exclusive in two specific areas. One, they have always struggled in the Japanese market. Phil Spencer has visited Japan on multiple occasions, even earlier this year, stating that they are looking for studios there. And they even have a Japanese division of Xbox Japan, built, just waiting for the next studio acquisition. Secondly, I believe, Sony has dominated in third-person action adventure games. And Microsoft knows this, which is why I believe the initiative exists to fill that hole in their lineup. Microsoft went on hiring different developers for the initiative, like Naughty Dog, Crystal Dynamics, all those really amazing studios, picking key members from AAA titles like Last of Us and Tomb Raider. They have Ninja Theory working on the story-driven action game Hellblade. So the two areas they're weak in, to reiterate, is the Japanese market and third-person action adventure games. Mm-hmm. So I believe whatever the studio acquisition is just my guess. It has to be something that sort of focuses in one or two of those areas. It's just my guess. But Phil has been doing some great things this year, and it's really a contrast to 2013 when they had only like 5 studios. So I'm really excited, man. I think it's whatever it is. I'm jealous that you might know who it is, but it's gonna be really exciting.
Well, I mean, listen, again, Microsoft is paving the way to making the Xbox brand the best place to play. And I didn't really mean for it to rhyme. That rhymed. I was completely out of luck. Mr. Bed, but I want to go to you next over here, because, you actually had said something I thought was pretty interesting. And as a gamer, you had some fears regarding if Microsoft were to pick up a studio as opposed to a publisher. And I kind of want you to reiterate that, because it makes a lot of sense. Right. But more importantly, for what Microsoft is doing, solidifying what Game Pass means to them, which is without even trying to stretch it, the most important thing to Microsoft. As great as the consoles are, as well as they've been designed and how they have figured a way to offer power at 500 and price and still give you some power at 300, as well as, of course, incorporate a service like a purchasing service for consumers in Xbox All Access, which has never been done before. It is pretty unbelievable. But the fact that they are potentially going to make another big announcement right before launch has at least me and a lot of people in the Xbox community excited. What are some of your concerns, and what are, start with that, but also can you just, back end it with your thoughts of when they're going to make this announcement?
So first off, I want to shout out Archimedes, because I totally, as the PlayStation guy, right, and as I'm slowly dying, I confuse FanFest with XO. So thank you for helping me out there. Buddy. Because I was like, "Are you sure?" And you're like, "Dude, XO." I'm like, right, I'm dumb. So as a gamer, as we ended our conversation prior to the show launching, and thinking it over, I do rather deal with the devil I know. When in terms of all these acquisition pickups, when we're talking about Xbox picking up all these publishers, I get paused when I see these huge acquisitions, and if we see a continuation of those huge acquisitions, because I think back on a couple of things. So when I think of these big acquisitions, I tend to think of cable providers and internet providers and phone providers. They're pretty much one and the same here in America. You have pretty much just like 3 or 4 big competitors, and they all kind of suck. And that is because along the way, and I think in the mid-90s, it was like the Summer of Love, where it was called the Summer of Love, where all these major corporations gathered together and kind of just chiseled out sections of the United States that they would compete in or not compete in. And that elimination of choice meant that you had an elimination of freedom as a consumer to go where you actually wanted, where was the best for you. So when I see big corporations buy other big corporations, I do think of that. I do think of what we saw in 2008 with big banks buying up big banks and nothing really happening. So like in terms of, none of that benefit reaching the consumer. So to me, I do get a pause for alarm when I take a look at other industries, when I see those big consolidations, because usually it doesn't trickle down that well. But it seems like what Microsoft is trying to do is what we've alluded to, what I've alluded to multiple times, is that I think the sweet spot they want to hit is 30 developers, 30 studios, and crank out that content continuously. I get a little bit, I can grapple with that a little bit better, because when you do talk about Tencent, there is that like big, Chinese bull in the room we have to talk about that gets a lot of people really nervous, which is the influence that the Chinese market is having on not just media here, but on other markets as well, and not particularly for the better. So, Tencent, a lot of people don't know this, they're in most of the publishers. They have stakes in almost all of them, especially the biggest one being Epic. So like to hopefully see maybe a company that we know that is Microsoft come in there, and not to say they're perfect either, because they've also done shady stuff, but it's more towards our benefit, the Western audience. But to see them come in here and buy out those studios so Tencent doesn't, I'm a little bit eased with. I'm also grappling with that idea that it is eventual. It is something that is going to upset the status quo, which is like, we talked about Luna, we talked about Stadia, we talked about Apple. If these companies actually become the major threats, the perfect storm scenario, not saying that Stadia is anywhere near, but who knows, then we're just going to have big corporations buy out major publishers to fill that studio arm, because Nadella said it perfectly. You can't build a studio overnight, but we can buy one overnight and produce content instantaneously, rather than set up a studio for 2, 3, maybe 5 years and then start rolling out content. So that's the only part that scares me, in the sense of like, well, if Apple just buys, let's just say EA, for example cases, all EA games are Apple exclusive, or Luna comes in here, buys out Activision, all Activision games are console exclusive. And again, this is just irrational fear for me. But like, then that gets to the video game meltdown that we saw back in the 80s, where everything was everybody had their own box and everybody had that exclusive content on the box, and not everybody could buy the box. And so they kind of just up and left. It also scares me when we see the streaming wars, where, like right here, right now, we have like 3 iterations of HBO. We have Netflix, we have Hulu, we have Peacock, we have CBS All Access, and I'm missing some others. So like, I definitely feel like, to get this rant a little bit cohesive, is Microsoft has seen the streaming wars and how it is about to begin, Zemi, and they're saying, okay, so let's to circle back on VG here, let's buy what we're weak against, or what areas that we can definitely improve and own. So like, yeah, we can own the Western game market or RPG market. Let's grab Bethesda. Yeah, we don't have a stake in Japan, so Sega does make the most sense because their origin starts in America. Their CEO was an American. So like you have that branch, that olive branch you could grab. Okay, now we have all these studios making all these variety of different games. Now we're settled. Now we have this thing where we're pumping out, half a dozen games every year. That's the interesting, and that's where I get excited again. I'm like, okay, I'm back on board. There's just some reservations I have with just major consolidations. What I would like to see, though, at the end of the day, is Microsoft go after the little guys, the paycheck to paycheck developers, buy them and make and really fill them out with cash. I beat that drum all the time because I know so many developers that are living paycheck by paycheck that do need that buyout. There are so many more Ninja Theories out there. So I would rather them do that. That would be really awesome to see. But one in particular, I would like to see as a Halo fan, I would like to see them buy Bungie. I would like to see them enter back into the fold that is Microsoft and give them the creative freedom that they want to make whatever. That would be really awesome to see Bungie come back to Microsoft. And yet I know Bungie's whole thing is like, but we want to do whatever we want. So like to have them do their distribution side of things, while they make the games they want is awesome. My other fear there is also when it comes to Bungie, Tencent has paid for some exclusive games that Bungie's making right now. So if Microsoft can go and grab that studio right now and turn whatever they're making for Tencent into a Microsoft property, whatever case, if they could do that, pull that off, that's a huge win. But I do think at the end of the day, everyone's right in terms of Microsoft's competition is a PlayStation anymore. It is Amazon. It is Apple. It is all these people coming in, all the major tech companies. And we're even seeing that in the car industry as well. Tech companies infusing their tech there. So again, a long rant over. I'm cautiously optimistic at the end of the day. I do have some reservations, but I'd rather deal with the devil I know that is Microsoft than a 10-cent mystery, corporation or Vivendi. God, if it was Vivendi,
yeah, you definitely don't want them because they tried to use the terror tactics to get Ubisoft, and thankfully that didn't go through because you definitely don't want them.
Also, am I live? Let me check my pulse. I'm sorry if that was overly long.
May I comment just really quickly here? Because I understand that fear, and I bet that one or two of our beloved developers will go under in this new business model with the subscriptions, because not all these players will sustain Apple, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, Tencent, and you name it. One or two of them won't make it. And these buy-offs definitely will lead to that fact that then one or two of our beloved game developers will go under or hopefully being sold again. But this is definitely one of the risks. I totally get that, Joe. And
also at the end of the day, it's about options. Like, Archimedes, you go, I have trouble buying $70 games. I don't. In terms of like when I look at the movie medium, I'm still buying movies. Like I own Into the Spider-Verse because I want that content. I want that 4K HDR. I don't want my mind to be blown. Like I'm still buying movies. I'm still buying music. It's just the way it's really just giving the consumer more choice on everything on top of that. It's just giving another outlet to produce revenue. That's why when I beat this drum a lot, we use the Nintendo card. Well, Nintendo can do anything they want. Nintendo gets to do whatever they want because they make IP that is unignorable. And Sony has begun that as well to an extent. They've made games that's the reason why people gravitate towards them.
Absolutely.
And that's why people don't mind paying for those games. That's why Nintendo could make literally the worst online service.
That's why I pay for those games. Absolutely right. And Sony has the big factor of nostalgia for them.
Mm-hmm.
People have a lot more nostalgia for the Sony brand than for the Xbox brand, because the Xbox brand is simply just too young. I didn't grow up with Xbox. I was 20 when the Xbox came out.
But it is crazy, though, when we talk about walking in here. This is the 5th generation Xbox, right? Or 5th or 4th? Like, that's insane to think that there has been that many iterations of Xbox, and they're still considered to be so young.
It is true. Yeah, it's the 4th generation.
There you go. Yep, it'd be their 4th one for sure. Yeah. But
it's
what I wanted,
crazy.
Yeah, let me bring VJ into the conversation. Now, VJ, you've heard everyone's point, and obviously you and I have talked about this on numerous podcasts, the importance of Xbox Game Pass. And there were some chat. Been some chatter in the chat. And by the way, we're crossed 800 people watching, which is pretty ridiculous for this small channel. I want to thank everybody for taking the time.
And we only have 150 likes.
Yeah, I don't know, man, folks.
Hit the like button. It is free.
It is
anonymous.
Listen, if it's because of me, if it's because of me, I take back everything. This is the greatest thing ever made. This is awesome. Go hit that like button.
It's certainly not because of you. Listen, folks, that's the thing. This is a small program. It has grown unbelievably in a way that the percentage that I have grown in 2020 has been nothing short of unbelievable. And that's been due to your help, your views, your watches, but the likes. Listen, if you are enjoying this program, and you know something, it's funny because I remember at a point when I first started with YouTube, I would actually forget. Like, I was so into the content, I would forget. Now, when I go to click on Den of Nerds, for instance, and I listen to Josh, which I do every day because he has a daily program, before I even do anything, I hit that like button. Why? Because 1, I'm supporting him that way. And 2, I think it's a good way to show that you are enjoying the content. So if the 838 people that are here, and hopefully we can break 1K today, which would be pretty dope, are enjoying the content, let's try and get 500 likes before we get on out of here. But VJ, I want to come back to you because, look, Game Pass is a service like Netflix. What makes Netflix so popular is that every week they are dropping new content. And of course, we can equate that to Game Pass. Now, Game Pass, for its business model that we have enjoyed so far, has been dropping lots of content. Every week, there's something new going in there. One of the biggest launches that have yet to be confirmed by Microsoft is the Series X and Series S launch, which 90% of those games are going to be in Xbox Game Pass. And again, very, very close to what Archimedes was saying. I went the other day and I dropped almost the entire amount for 4 games, and it hurt because 4 games from Sony is $300, folks. $300 after tax is what you're paying, and I have all of their big first-party games. I have Demon Souls, I have Spider-Man, the $70 edition. I have the gaming, the Racing All Stars. I have Sackboy. I think there's one other one that I have, and it's $70 a game, and that hurts, man. And when you look at Microsoft, they want to keep driving the point home that Xbox not only is the best place to play, but it's the most valuable place to play. And how do you do that? You have big acquisitions. And what we've heard and what I have heard, the next one is going to be big. For you as a gamer that is potentially going to support multiple consoles, are you okay with these big acquisitions? And when do you think this acquisition is going to come forward? Is it going to be the last week? Is it going to be a week before? Is it going to be a day before at the rumored XO20 where they can push more people towards the Xbox brand?
It should acquire your channel, Boom.
I'm for sale, folks. I am for sale.
You've asked me for several things here, Boom, and let's be honest, nearly every single company under the sun's been already mentioned in the chat and by our esteemed panel. So I'll try to come up with something. So let's see how we go. So entering next gen, you have to look at where Sony was, right? They pursued the usual strategy, right? The one that served them really well during this current gen of tying up content on an exclusive or timed exclusive basis. We saw this play out, right, with two very specific titles in Deathloop by Arcane Studios and Tokyo Ghostwire by Shinji Mikami over at Tango Softworks in Japan. How did Microsoft respond? They stepped in and acquired ZeniMax, to popular and unpopular opinion, right? At the end of the day, it was, no matter what your opinion is, it was exceptional business move, right? So I know that we're sort of gravitating right now towards market caps that are slightly under or potentially over ZeniMax, because of people are looking at what the rumors are and they're trying to put 1 + 1 or equal 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, and everyone's entitled to opinion. That's absolutely true. However, ones that are sort of larger than ZeniMax, which was a private company with investors looking for a potential exit, I think it's going to be sort of more of the same again. So there's a few questions here, like why haven't we seen gameplay from several first-party studios? What looks incredible and could power your dreams, but is still a ways from coming to full term? What is the lifeblood of several, if not a dozen Xbox studios, maybe even 24? I don't know. Someone will have to do the research and correct me or inform me. What did Sony demonstrate and thus synonymize themselves with what next gen will truly look like and feel like? What tool set does Sony not entirely utilize other than one or two, maybe amongst two of their currently known studios that we know about? Who can Microsoft purchase to the equivalent effect as ZeniMax had on Sony, who thought that they trumped Xbox, but now are just temporary custodians of two new IPs? What did Sony dip their toes into by making a small investment splash? What's easier to acquire, a private company or a listed company? Who owns an IP that is one of Sony's top 10 revenue generators over the last 2 years? Who has also hit a roadblock with Apple and has recently seemingly joined forces with a potential company in court? Who potentially adds a huge spike to Game Pass subscribers? Now, I began the sort of talk with a clue with what company is private and sort of looking for a potential IPO, since it's got investors who are obviously always looking for an inevitable return. And we had this blue sky thinking before, right? Before ZeniMax was picked up, and I pointed out ZeniMax at the time, which I thought would be a really good an acquisition or an announcement. I think sort of entering into speculation town here, Boom. We're obviously, with your permission, I think it's going to be a strategic one. And if at all possible, I would be going for Epic Games for so many long-term, structurally progressive and synergistic business reasons. 17 billion, I thought, is whatever the current market cap is. I had a look. So what would this get you? It would get you the Epic Store, which has, in particular, I think 60 million monthly active users at the moment. It's got various gaming IPs. And not forgetting Fortnite, I think it is, right? You've got the Unreal Engine, all the dedicated support, marketing, and R&D that goes with the above, and everything you just asked me for, Boom, right? But how do they overcome some certain issues? And every acquisition and merger and acquisition is fraught with issues, right? The legal dispute with Apple, right? Can they take Tencent out with their 40% shareholding? Does Epic hold out for an IPO in these uncertain times, right? And I think that's partly why ZeniMax sold, right? Because they could potentially have gone for an IPO. What would it mean longer term for third parties that are using Unreal for PS5 games, right? Why did Microsoft also, it takes my mind back, why didn't they acquire Epic? Why did Microsoft not acquire Epic back when the Gears relationship was really blossoming? Look, at the end of the day, it's blue sky thinking. There's lots to think about, and I personally don't really want it to happen. But this is Microsoft we're talking about. That's my piece, anyway.
Well, I mean, listen, it's a really interesting choice here. I've heard a lot of speculations and people saying, "Oh, they should buy this or this." I've never heard Epic, but you are absolutely right.
I have to back it up, though. I have to give some sort of basis for why I'm choosing Epic, not just pulling stuff out of the thin air. So that's my basis for why. If you really want to take out, okay, Sony, whatever. If you really want to take them out, if you really want to hurt them, if you really want to shank them, and if you really want to dominate the market, that would be my play.
it also makes sense because on the PC side, Microsoft has Steam as a competitor, and like you said, with the Epic Store, they would have a foundation to be competitive in that market as well, and them being the biggest customer of the Unreal Engine. Yeah,
Actually, that's a really
would make
interesting
sense.
point, Archimedes, because my second choice was Valve. Gabe Newell is 67, and he's built a legacy, and he will be thinking, in my opinion, of how to move it forward in the future without him. George Lucas, there was I think he was 68 when he sold Lucasfilm. Albeit, in my opinion, to the wrong company. I think there were partners out there that may have handled the Star Wars franchise more sensitively. But 30%.
What do you think that would be? What company? Just curious.
We'll talk about that. Sorry, I don't want to go off topic here. Sorry. 30% of Valve's monthly active subscribers are in China, right? Valve has 95 million active users, only second to Sony at 103, which isn't a big difference, right? But speaking to a friend of mine who's much more sort of like in the know, or not in the know, but much more strategically thinking than I am. I'm an amateur, but he would think that Valve is potentially a better fit for Amazon, right? But that makes more sense for different reasons. But that can be debated on a separate podcast, maybe. So anyway, sorry, Boom. Sorry for carrying on, Boom.
No, that's quite all right. I mean, listen, it is again, this is a conversational podcast, and I did ask your opinion, and you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. As great as that is, that's not what has been relayed to me. It is going to be a gaming publisher, because buying Epic does buy you resources and does buy you tech, but doesn't buy you content.
What about Konami?
Yeah, Konami. The reason why I've always asked that question is because they're too tied up into gyms and pachinko machines.
But exactly, they want it out. You give them you give them a pretty penny. You're like, listen, you're not using this anymore. Let's take it.
You mean they're playing Game Pass on a treadmill?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, hey, listen, you never know. But listen, folks, I got to say, this has been a great opening salvo. All I can tell you is that as we get closer to the end of the month, look forward to a big announcement, and it's coming. And I'm not the only one saying it. My source is not the only one saying it. We're starting to hear rumblings. We're starting to hear other podcasters discuss it, like Randall Thor 19. And again, it is going to be big, and Microsoft, in my opinion, is doing the right thing. Bethesda was huge, and they did that right before the pre-order went live, and of course, they sold out in seconds. We have that confirmed. And could you just imagine, right before launch, they make a big announcement on said publisher, and it sends the gaming community into a frenzy to want us to not only buy an Xbox, but be a part of Xbox Game Pass. Because with these recent purchases and additions to the first party outlook, it is going to be huge. And I think Microsoft is doing the right thing. I think that they are waiting for this is going to be the biggest 1-2 punch in gaming history. And we talked about this when we did the live show right after it was announced that they bought Bethesda. This could potentially be the knockout blow for the industry. And if again, what has been relayed to me comes to fruition, it is going to be an unbelievable discussion, and it's going to potentially put Microsoft in a position to really take the lead in next generation. And it's not just, we're not talking about console sales. We're talking about just overall mind share. Mind share is so much more important and so valuable. Some people don't even pay it any attention. It's why Sony sold 112 plus million consoles, because they had mind share, but they had market share that was due to the massive amount of people that saw Sony as the cool box to buy. And Microsoft does not want another 7 years of what just happened. That is why you're seeing this investment. But I want to move on to the next topic. And this one, listen, this one is good. And this one is going to be talking about smart delivery. I'm not saying that's smart delivery. But my God, that's the old thing. We're gonna be talking about quick resume. And listen, when Microsoft was developing the next console, of course, Series X and S we're talking about, in the long line of Xbox products, their vision was clear: Services within the ecosystem will be paramount to the future of the platform. This is why Xbox Game Pass, Smart Delivery, Project xCloud, and Xbox All Access are leading the charge into the next generation. But it's this particular aspect that no one is really talking about. As a matter of fact, we don't even know if Sony's PS5 is going to offer something very similar. I don't know if it's going to be 1 game, 5 games, or 10 games, but right now Microsoft is doing something with the power of the NVMe and SSD, and that of course is Quick Resume. Now we have seen a tremendous amount of this going around through the Austin Evans. We've seen it on Digital Foundry. We've seen it on several of the bigger sites that have their hands on the prototype Xbox Series X. And Quick Resume is literally a game changer. But one of the people that I want to bring into the conversation is Jez Corden of Windows Central. Now, he's obviously a good friend of this show. He's also a part of the Xbox 2 podcast with Randall Thor. And it's his article that I pulled regarding Quick Resume that I wanted to talk about. And here's what Jez had to say. He says this: It's in the crazy fast NVMe SSD that Microsoft has unlocked another feature to Xbox Series X and S, Quick Resume, which freezes your game state directly into storage memory for later use. Here's how it works and why it is literally, in his words, a game changer. Quick Resume can store around 4 to 6 games depending on how large and complex they are. As of this writing, though, there is no way to manage which games are stored in Quick Resume feature. It would be nice if one day we could get some kind of task switcher similar to what we get on smartphones, or even lock certain games into Quick Resume to ensure that they're always ready to go. And hey, maybe those features are coming. We're still using pre-release software on our Xbox Series X preview units. And he says this: my plan at launch is to dive into a ton of games. Both. Oh no, again, that's the end of Jez's statement. Now this is me talking. For me, I intend to jump in to many of the big AAA games, right? I've already said publicly one of the first ones I'm going into is Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which if you saw the video that was released yesterday, holy shit, does that game look incredible running on the Series X. And I can say that because obviously the trailer was Xbox branded. So I'm assuming that I can make an ass out of you and me, but I'm assuming what they showed yesterday was running on the Series X, and it would make sense because they have the marketing rights. I will say this: I am very interested in a lot of the smaller games. And Zemi, we talked about some of the smaller games on Tuesday's show, The Ascents, The Call of the Seas, right? These are smaller games that maybe people are going to overlook. Maybe people are not looking for bright memory. We know that this is the smaller bright memory. Infinite is going to come in 2021, but the game still looks amazing. I can't wait to get into it because I'm going to want to try so many games. Having this ability to switch between games and it pops within seconds, going from one game to the other, is incredible. So Zemi, I want to go to you first on this. Obviously, this is an exclusive feature to Microsoft. And again, I say that because Sony has not even mentioned it. So I have to assume that they don't have it. Now, I could be marked wrong on that, sure. But for right now, on this conversation, on this day, we know that Microsoft has it and Sony does not. And that is a big deal because Quick Resume is going to be one of those key features that people look at and potentially, I'm not saying you're going to leave Sony for Quick Resume. I'm saying that when you start stacking what Microsoft is doing, and then you look at what Sony is doing, it is going to be a much different stacked deck. And this is just another part of that deck. For you, how important is Quick Resume? And is it a feature you find yourself going to be using on a regular basis?
Yeah, so I mean, I think quick resume is very important, and to also kind of touch on, the idea of like new features coming to quick resume and them, fleshing out the whole feature even more. I would be surprised if they didn't, because that seems to be what Xbox always does. Is they take community feedback very, very seriously. They allow consumers to vote on new features that they would want to come, or changes to certain features that are already implemented, and then they slowly make updates. In some ways it seems like every month there's a new update coming to my Xbox with some little tweak somewhere in there. So I would be surprised if they didn't tweak and upgrade and give more options to the consumer of how they want quick resume to work for them. But overall, I think quick resume is a really, really, really interesting feature, and it has a lot of promise. And I think ultimately what makes it so good is that it's just a time saver, right? It's going to save consumers time. It's going to, it's going to, give consumers it has the quickness to it, right? Which is what we're looking for this next generation. We want our games to load quicker. We want to get into the games quicker. And so for your average consumer, he's not going to probably know that it's called quick resume. He's not going to care what it's called, but he's going to know what it is. And that is the most important thing. Whenever little Johnny, the 13-year-old kid who's wanting to play Fortnite picks up Minecraft and he goes into it and the game almost immediately loads up, he's going to perceive the Xbox as just an amazingly fast console. And that is the power of this feature, right? For me personally, I've said, multiple times that I play one game, I beat that game, and then I move to the next. So for single player games, I'm not really going to use this for. However, it is common for me to play some Call of Duty, and then a buddy comes in and says, "Hey, you want to play some Gears of War?" And then I bounce over to Gears of War or over to Halo. And so I think for multiplayer games, this is where quick resume is going to be so useful to me. Because I really, for single player games, only play like one until I'm done, and then I just move on to the next one. But overall, I think that this is a very, very big feature. It's just one of the many features of this Xbox that is just going to save a lot of consumers time. And instead of, wasting, hours in a year on loading screens, we're just, going to cut a ton of time off of that. And that just means that there's more time that we get to play the games that we love, rather than just sitting at a screen thinking about the games that we love.
No, I mean, that's a great point. And obviously a lot of people don't understand how many minutes in a day you're actually waiting to go to a load screen. And the fact that this is I think one of the features that people are going to look forward to and don't even realize how important it is until they're actually using it. Like, talking about it right now, we've only seen on screen when we can absolutely have a controller in our hand and move from Call of Duty to the Ascent to Call of Sea to Yakuza or to Dirt 5 in literally snaps of fingers. It is going to be something that we're going to be like, I can't live without this.
Also, just to add this in, a lot of us that are listening to this podcast, of course, we know what quick resume is because we've been hearing about it. We've been following Xbox and all this different stuff. But, the majority of the people that are going to be buying these Xboxes are casual consumers. They don't know what quick resume is, more than likely. They're just going to perceive the Xbox console as just a super, super fast console that loads games almost instantaneously or whatever, right? That's how they're going to perceive it, which is the cool thing, is that you don't even need to know what it's called to really fully appreciate it. It's one of those features that I think a lot of consumers aren't even going to realize that it's actually a thing, and that Xbox, literally implemented it into the console this way. They're just going to perceive it as the Xbox is just really, really fast.
Yeah. No, that's
Which
true.
is cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Real quick, before I bring in Archimedes into the conversation, let me just catch some of these super chats. First of all, Bando Fox drops another generous $2 super chat, and he says this: I'm a FedEx driver, love hearing the podcast. That's cool, dude. I am glad that this can pass the time while you work. And also, thank you for your service, because you're out there, delivering packages, and we're getting, our stuff thanks to the brave men and women like yourself who are still out there working during a time where the world is under a pandemic. So thank you for your service there as well. We also have to thank Pixelbit G drops another outstanding $2 super chat and says, with Bethesda, Xbox has plenty of nostalgia now. Indeed, it does. Bounty Boom, a good friend and generous friend of the show, drops a $5 super chat and says, what's up, Double Barrel Gaming? And he's actually talking to you, Mr. Badbit. You are the only PS5 podcast I listen to. So what's up, everyone? Hit the like button. So you're getting fans left and right there, Mr. Badbit.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, Bandle Fox drops another. What's that?
I just said well deserved.
No, absolutely, 100% well deserved. Yeah, no doubt about it. That's why he's part of the show. Bando Fox drops another $2 super chat. Says, hit that MF like button like it owes you money. Well, thank you for that, dude. We have Lonely Boy drops an outstanding $5 super chat. Says, can Microsoft rescue the game industry away from microtransactions and unfinished game releases by making Game Pass a success? The sustainable revenue. I mean, I think microtransactions are always going to be there. I just think that the way that Microsoft is doing it may be able to save people some money. And obviously, if you're in Game Pass, you're definitely getting your $15 worth for sure. We also have Harry Balls. Always makes me laugh when I say that. Drops an outstanding $5 super chat and says, you want a war? If Microsoft bought Konami with Metal Gear and Silent Hill and Castlevania, Phil would need Secret Service level protection. Jesus Christ. Hopefully, I think he probably already has that because he is Phil Spencer. I mean, he does sit at the table with Satya and Nadal, so I would imagine his security detail is pretty stout for sure. But Archimedes, this is a feature that when it was first discussed, people did not understand its relevance. And now that the console has been given to some of the bigger content creators, obviously given to some of the bigger media outlets, we're seeing this really be put to its tasks. And we've heard that there's been as many as 10 games in Quick Resume, because obviously they packed in some smaller games. I mean, obviously, if you're going to pack in a Valhalla, you're going to pack in a Call of Duty, and you're going to add potentially Cyberpunk 2077, you're probably only going to get anywhere between 4 to 6 games because those games are massive. But the fact that you can still have games that big in there to go back and forth is an unbelievable feature. And again, it's a feature as of this show that either Sony does not have or they're not talking about, which I thought was a little weird. But right now, it's one of those instances where we have something for Microsoft that the competition does not have. How big of a deal do you think Quick Resume is going to be overall?
Well, I think this is one of these features that everyone is thinking now, well, do I really need that? But once you are getting used to it, it's hard to not have it. It's something probably we all going to use more often than we realize, just like Sammy said, without thinking about it. This was now a quick resume that I used. But if I think about it, how often do I switch in between games during my gaming sessions? Quite a lot, actually, for multiple reasons. I'm playing my single player game and a buddy hops on and invites me to a party, and I just jump over and play a quick match with him. Then I leave the party again because I want to continue my single player game, and then I'm frustrated at the boss, and then I just jump over to Tony Hawk to relax for 10 or 15 minutes and go back to the boss again. And this is really the way how I play when I play games. And so for me, this is going to be a real time saver, and getting faster into the games is something definitely worth it. And besides that, of course, being a content creator, I regularly go back to games to do some screen captures for my videos. And when I do that, I switch a lot in between games. That's why I play today on an SSD, an external SSD. I just 1 minute ago, the delivery boy rang and delivered me a new SSD because my current external SSD is full. Because I really jump in between games, and for me, having that feature, absolutely awesome.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be one of those. Excuse me. One of those features that we don't that I don't think we could live without. Mr. Bad, but I want to go to you next on this because obviously you're buying both consoles, and obviously we know that you're going to be playing a lot of Miles Morales. You're going to play a lot of Demon Souls for sure. But getting back to the Xbox with smart delivery, we have heard from numerous content creators. We've heard from numerous sources within the mainstream media that this is once, and I'm quoting not anyone in particular, but just the industry as a whole. Once you use Quick Resume, you're going to say to yourself, how did I game without it? Because right now, you can start up your Xbox and your game is waiting for you. One game. And sometimes it takes a bit of a minute to get that game to load. We've seen them go from one, within a snap. For you, are you excited to use this feature? And how big of a deal do you think it is going to be for the Xbox fan base?
So talking to a few people that have their Series X on them, and me trying to steal it several times off of them. This is a feature. I think Archimedes said it. Like we're talking about, hey, do I really need this? But like when you're using it, you will not be thinking twice about it. Like this is going to be a huge thing for me as a gamer. I'm normally kind of like Demi. If I'm playing a solo experience, like when I was playing The Last of Us, that's all I was playing. If I was playing Ghost of Tsushima, that's all I was playing. Assassin's Creed Odyssey this year, that's all I was playing. But if I'm in the multiplayer mood, or like usually I'll have that solo open world experience while diving into a multiplayer game like Fortnite or whatever have you, I'm usually diving back in between both of those games simultaneously. So like Archimedes, I'm right there with you. If I'm stuck on something way too much, I'm gonna play like a round of Fortnite to get de-stressed about the whole situation.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think this is gonna be a way bigger deal once we have this thing in our homes. And I think this is, I talked about it prior to the show, but when I saw the UI of the PlayStation 5, I was like, I like the PlayStation 5 UI look more than the series, but the features of the series is the thing that I'm way more hyped on. So to me, I think that, game preview, right? I keep on messing it up.
Quick resume.
Jesus, why do I keep on saying game preview? That quick resume is just such a killer feature that once we get it, there's no turning back. I think this is going to be a big deal, kind of like the share button was on PlayStation. I think that's what this is going to be. Moving back, I vamp it for you.
Yeah, no, perfect. I know people are saying the audio is skipping. That is something with YouTube. I've adjusted the audio through the service I'm using, and it has nothing to do with me. It is, I believe it is YouTube. I backed out. I've checked the audio. But I mean, the best thing I can do is to say, kind of rewind the show a little bit, and it should be better. I don't know if I'm still bonding.
Do you want me to go fight Mr. YouTube right now? We can fix this problem right now with fisticuffs?
Yeah, I don't know. He said someone says the audio is. It looks like the ticker is like. It's like I don't know. I mean, folks, I apologize for the hiccup. We very rarely have that. I don't know why that is. I can back out, reset my computer. So you know what? Let me do that for a second and see if that certainly helps the situation. But VJ, let's get your opinion on what a quick resume is going to mean for you as a gamer, and what it's actually going to mean to Xbox gamers.
I believe that not just quick resume. I think the load times and quick resume are both just sort of initial, but nonetheless, how can I put it, quintessential features and pieces of the larger next-gen picture in terms of sort of being able to access, curate, engage, enjoy, and immerse yourself in everything that is next-gen gaming, right? And it's such a huge leap. And of course, you know, I don't want to omit the enormous Game Pass library of content and what that has to offer, right? I mean, it's pretty incredible. I hope that quick resume and future Xbox sort of features allow us to sort of personalize and tailor our gaming experiences to no end. But maybe that's just a pipe dream for now. I'm not sure. I'm not as technical, but bring it back to quick resume. And I've said this before as well. Having access to sort of several games at your fingertips at lightning speed. It's just incredibly seductive and efficient, in my opinion, as Zemi was saying, right? The amount of time it's going to save you. Not that I'm unaccustomed to getting up off my sofa and plugging in an odd different disc occasionally, but this definitely will, save my legs, so to speak. But being able to jump in and out of different experiences almost instantaneously is perhaps the biggest quality of life feature that I think all gamers are going to love, and it is the main reason, Boom, why, in my opinion anyway, many people that I'm speaking to are opting to go digital this upcoming gen in terms of their content purchasing habits. I know you definitely prefer to purchase discs and all that, and that there's nothing wrong with that, obviously, whatsoever. But let's not forget a great, if not important, feature for the Series S as well. I think is this quick resume, obviously, because it doesn't have a disk drive, and I really do think it's a godsend, and I really hope it does work on the Series S as fantastically as it is on the X's, because I think that's the only machine I've seen it demoed on at the moment. Correct me if I'm wrong. What I don't know, and here's maybe someone much more technical than me can advise, is that, you know, when you're like switching between sort of suspended games, maybe via the xCloud on your mobile, is that going to be possible? Does everything then sync back to like the last game you played on your xCloud? Will that be sort of mimicked on the mothership, on the Series X, sort of, so to speak, back at home? But besides these features,
may I jump in here? Yes, it is. All your save files are automatically synced with the cloud. So as soon as you save, basically during the game or finish a chapter or whatever, and you somehow create a save file, this is automatically synced with the cloud. And if you jump into xCloud, you pick up at that point.
Fantastic. I mean, thank you for that, Archimedes. And as I just want to finish up, besides these features, I believe, and I hope, I guess it's a hope more than I believe, I hope there's a lot more to unearth and discover going forward, and it's going to be an exciting time for everyone. And I just can't recall, Boom, the last time, maybe the Dreamcast, the last time I was so excited for an upcoming launch of new hardware.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I mean, and like, you know, Archimedes, you know, added in, you know, I think it is going to be a feature that, you know, not a lot of people kind of wanted or even realize is probably there until they really start using it and they see what it is. And I think a lot of people are going to be pleasantly surprised with how well the feature works and how much time it saves them. 3-Bit, what are your thoughts on the quick resume feature, and, you know, how often do you think you're going to be using it, man?
Yeah, to VJ's point, I believe, at least through the cloud, when you're playing xCloud games, I believe they are actually using a version of Xbox One S, if I'm not mistaken, for the streaming there. But in terms of quick resume, I think it's some amazing tech. It's pretty cool that the quick resume is stored on the SSD itself, I believe. So you can turn off your console or unplug it for days, and when you turn it back on, the game is in the exact same place as you left it. So it's more than just switching between games at that point. It becomes more of a huge quality of life improvement. And it's again, a lot of you guys did reiterate, is this something you necessarily it's like something you don't realize you want. It's like something you'll be spoiled to, like, why haven't I had this before? So I'm definitely excited for it. It definitely makes me wonder if Sony will implement it as well. I didn't get to see the the UI video yet, but this feature is something I could see myself using a lot because, frankly, I have a very short attention span, and I tend to jump in between games, especially if I get into like a competitive match and I rage quit and I play something else, and then I come back to it. Once I cool down, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go back to it. So for me, I constantly jump in between games. I don't know about some of you guys in the chat, but I tend to jump in between games all the time. So the feature it feels like it's marketed towards me. It seems like it's going to be a time saver. So I'm excited, not only by the fact that it can switch in between, I believe it's 1 to 6 different games. That's really impressive, but I also think it's really impressive that you can turn off your Xbox and unplug it and plug it back in, and your game is still in the same spot. That's insane.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. First of all, Sammy, thank you for taking over the show. Now, I'm not sure if we are still botting. If that, in fact, is the case, then it is not on my end. It is on YouTube's end. And the only thing I could suggest is if you are listening live, kind of just rewind it a bit.
You can also try possibly refreshing the browser as well, like refreshing YouTube.
Yes, absolutely. We're definitely refreshing. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulties. We very rarely have them. And like I said, I even took the time to reset the modem. So we're not having, I'm checking all my stats. We're not having any issues on this end. It's got to be YouTube, which has been having trouble as of late. But folks, if you are here and you're still here, and we have over 760 people still here, hopefully you can hang around for another half an hour while we break down the next topic. Now, did I get everybody's opinion on this particular topic?
Yes, we did.
Excellent, excellent. So what I want to do is I want to move on to the next one. And this one is, again, it's a feature that many people in the community might overlook. In fact, many people in the gaming industry might overlook. But, you know, with Microsoft's commitment to backwards compatibility as far back as June 15, 2015, when Phil Spencer announced BC for the Xbox One, that Xbox 360 games would be available. 5 years later, Xbox players are still being treated to the knowledge that when you purchase your Xbox Series X and S this November, you will not only be the best place to play, but you're going to have thousands of games across 4 generations. And I bring this up today simply because the Xbox Wire article that dropped. And one of the things I find interesting about the fact that we are getting thousands of games across 4 generations is the fact of what Microsoft did to get there. And I'm not sure if a lot of people understand this, but they spent, according to the article, 500,000 hours of gameplay testing across 4 generations of Xbox games to be able to be played on your Series X and S. But see, this is where Microsoft takes the next step, and one that I feel, until Sony clarifies it, I feel has another leg up on Sony. See, Sony has said only 10 games from the PlayStation 4 are not going to work. That's a big deal, right? That is a great thing. The problem is and at least for me anyway, the big part left out of that conversation is what advantages are these games going to get by being played on a PlayStation 5. Now, we know that they have something called boost mode. We understand that. The problem is, as of this show, we don't have a list on what games. Now, we do know Insomniac came out on Twitter and said, yes, game B, A, B, and C are going to get boost mode coverage, which is great. But Sony themselves have not put out a list that says, yes, all of our first-party games are going to receive a boost mode. We don't know. But we do know for an absolute fact that, according to this article, that every game, not just a handful, not just first party, every game that is backwards compatible, which is thousands upon thousands of games, are going to receive some sort of advantage being played on the new consoles. And that includes double the frame rate, that includes auto HDR, which we're seeing start to come into the conversation, along with, of course, load times being cut literally in half, potentially removed totally because of the games being older and potentially smaller. So they're going to be snapping to the start screen faster than they ever have before. Again, this is a big deal. Now, I know for many folks, like for instance, and I bring him up all the time, Randall Thor does not really, once he's done with the game, he very rarely goes back to it. But he did say on the video that I told you guys to check out that he's happy to know that it's there, even though he may not use it as much as others. The fact that it's there is a big deal. So, of course, Zemi, I want to go to you next on this. Obviously, listen, we all have ridiculous backlogs. You specifically have one that's twice as tall as you are. And the fact that if you want to go out and play a game from the Xbox 360 that is BC available, you can do that. But what's interesting and what's exciting as Xbox gamers is that that particular game is going to run better than it has ever run before, and it's potentially going to have advantages that were never thought of when the game was originally designed. Meaning, like, for instance, auto HDR. The game is probably going to be a standard definition type of game, but because of the VRS and the power of the console, you're going to get that advantage. For you, is that a big deal moving into the next generation?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And and I've said this on several occasions, to me, backwards compatibility, just that alone is a huge thing, because we as consumers, we spend a lot of money on games, even the ones that maybe only buy 2 or 3 games. Even in that sense, your games are even more precious to you, right? We spend money on these games, and and it should be expected that we can continue to play these games that we spent $60 for or $40 for within the next generation. But to take it even a step forward from that and say that not only can you play 1,000+ games from the previous generations, 3 previous generations, mind you, they're actually going to play better. Right, whether that's HDR, whether that's better frame rates, better load times, whatever it is, they're going to play better. They're going to be either slightly or possibly even massively better than the original games. To me, that's huge. I'm not gonna sit here and say that I'm gonna go back and play 1,500 360. I don't even know if there was 1,500 360 games, but I'm not gonna say that I'm gonna play those games. But I am a huge Elder Scrolls fan. Whenever new Elder Scrolls games are about to come out, a lot of the times I like going back to Morrowind or to Oblivion, and for this case, I'll be going back to Skyrim to play these games, and to know that not only can I actually play them, but I can play them and they're going to look and play even better. And I've said on this show several times how this new Mafia remake that just came out, I can't wait to be able to play that on my next gen Xbox, to see the loading screens, to see potentially more frame rate, a higher frame rate, and all that different stuff. Actually, before the show, me and 3-Bit, we were talking, and I was telling him about Fallout 4 and how I've been really wanting to play it, but I'm trying to wait until the new consoles come out.
Right.
Because I want to see if I can. I want to see if I can build more things in a settlement without the frames dropping as much on this new console, right? And so for that reason, it is a huge thing, and it's something that Xbox didn't have to do, but they did anyway, right? And I think it's a feature that a lot of us, kind of somewhat similar to the last one, a lot of us kind of think, oh, it's not necessary, we don't need this, I'll just keep my old console. But I think once people actually, start having those cravings, I remember back in the day, I would go and I would sell a game to GameStop, and I would think at the time, I'm never going to play this game ever again, whatever. 2 months later, I would be spending $40 for it, right? And they only gave me $35, right? So I'd be buying games again just so I could replay them. I think that that's going to be kind of somewhat similar to this situation, that a lot of people are going to find that there are a lot of games that maybe one day they just have some nostalgia come up, and they want to play Fable Anniversary. They want to play Gears of War Ultimate Edition, or they want to play, whatever that game is that they have that really, strong emotional attachment to. And because they can play it on their newest console, they, not only, do they have to, not only are they saving space because they don't need to go and get the old console and bring it out and do all this different stuff, but they can play that game and they can play a better version of that game. And to me, that is a huge thing. That is a huge thing.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree, and I think it's again one of those features, and I like how you position that. They didn't have to do it, but they did do it, and they're doing it in a way that isn't kind of like, ho hum, here's some games you could play. No, they went out of their way to make sure that every game that's BC is available with advantages. That's a really big deal. You know what? Let me go to Boxer Bear next on this one. Archimedes, here's the thing. When you talk about backwards compatibility, a lot of people poo-poo it in the not so much the industry, not the gaming industry, but I'm talking about the social media, because a lot of people are like, well, who wants to play old games? Well, apparently millions of people want to play old games, and as we have seen, older games when they are revived on a newer hardware that takes advantage of said hardware, it makes that game almost a new game for some people. And again, when you have a lot of games in your backlog, maybe you couldn't get to Red Dead Redemption 2. Maybe you couldn't get to Resident Evil 3. But or Resident Evil 2, or even Fusion Frenzy, for instance, is getting auto HDR, which is ridiculous to think that a game that came out in 2001 is somehow going to take advantage of this new hardware. It's bananas. But real quick, I just want to read just a snippet from the article that was written, and it says this: backwards compatible games run natively on the Xbox Series X and S, running with the full power of the CPU, GPU, and SSD. No boost mode, no downclocking, the full power of the console for each and every backward compatible game. Now, when you hear that, Archimedes, are you happy to know that Microsoft has spent as much time as they have getting it right? Archimedes, you're muted, brother. Okay, maybe he had
awesome. Okay, sorry. I get, why did it got muted? I have no idea. It was in the software. Usually I mute myself on the mic itself, so I don't know. Okay, yeah, of course I'm excited for the backwards compatibility. I mean, the backward compatibility team from Microsoft, they are top notch. They are bench on the market. When I think about that team, maybe I'm not doing them right, but I think about a team of really talented guys that took that as a challenge for themselves. To what can we do to not just make the games run, but what is a true challenge? And I know these kind of engineers. I consider myself being such an engineer as well. I always search for the next technical challenge that I want to solve. That is what makes good engineers, and they have a bunch of them there in that team. And the backward compatibility is just, I love it. I regularly play older games. I don't know if I've ever told the story that when I picked up my 1X, the first game that I loaded up was not a new game. It was Halo 3. Yeah,
nice.
Because I really liked to see the 16 times anisotropic filtering and so on. I really like to see that. And then I went back and played Oblivion. That game looked insane, being a early 360 game, on the 1X. Incredible texture work that suddenly was visible that you have never seen before, and so on. And I will do the same with the Series X. Well, probably my first game there will be Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but I'm definitely going to play a lot of older games. I regularly go back to my favorites and replay them. And for nostalgia reasons, sometimes because my backlog is insanely huge, I just love to buy games and I just don't have enough time to play them all. So not having to worry about that anymore is truly amazing. That I can pick up games that are in my backlog since for 10 years now, and then I know that I will play the best possible version of that game with better frame rates, auto HDR, better textures, better filtering, and so on. Can't wait to see that. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to see, especially if you do have, like you said, big backlogs of games that you bought, you just never got around to. It's nice to know that not only are they going to run better, but they're going to look better as well. You know, Mr. Badbit, I want to bring you into the conversation, but let me just catch up with a few of the super chats there. We have Lonely Boy drops an additional, very generous $10 super chat and says, at 15 million Game Pass subs at $10 per month, that's already 1.8 billion a year. At 30 million subs, they clear a minimum $3.6 billion a year. First party won't need microtransactions to piggyback off of the last super chat. Wow, that's indeed a lot of cash for a service. Mariano Barrentos, I know I butchered your name. I apologize tremendously. Drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, I think quick resume will be great and better for my kids. I have 3 kids online. Online schooling. All 3 game differently. Plus, I give them limits. Then that's definitely going to work for you for sure. The Living Flame drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, bad news, boom. Destiny 2 will be 30 FPS until December 8th. Yeah, I'm a little disappointed with that. I thought we were getting 60 right out of the gate, but it's fine. I mean, it's literally, a couple of weeks away. So that to me is not that big of a deal.
First world problems, guys.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. JD Gamer, very generous friend of the show, drops an outstanding $10 super chat and says, backwards compatibility simply adds to the number of available games to play, period. There's so many games released now compared to previous gens that no one has even gotten. Rand has played them all in a single generation. Yeah, he plays a lot of games, that dude, for sure. But, Mr. Badbit, this is another snippet from the article. They say this. This means that all titles run at peak performance that they were originally designed for, with significantly higher performance than their original launch platform, resulting in higher and more steady frame rates and rendering at maximum resolution and visual quality. Backward compatible titles also benefit from significant reductions in load times due to the massive leap in performance from our NVMe SSD at the heart of the Xbox Velocity architecture. And obviously, I mean, this is exciting because, again, maybe you have games in your backlog that you hadn't got a chance to play. Are you excited to potentially, besides playing the new games? Obviously, we all want to play new games, but maybe going back to some of the older games you didn't get around to.
Yeah, for me, I love the verbiage here because, some people, I've seen online a misconception of what this means. It doesn't mean every game is going to be 60 or 120 FPS, right? So when it says what the game is designed to play at, you're going to get that steady frame rate. So, for example, I think it was on Digital Foundry, which please give them love and stop yelling at them, people. All right. I'll yell at you.
Yeah, what is wrong with that?
I'll fight them. I'll fight because it's games at the end of the day. There's so much more important things to bicker about than yelling at those folks. But they showed, I believe, Assassin's Creed Unity, and they're like, look, it actually runs 60 FPS compared to all counterparts. You don't want to just overload the game with all the frames because you could end up breaking the game that way, bricking that game. So whatever game is designed to be, let's just say 60 or even just 30, that means what you're going to get is stability across titles, and that is something to really look forward to. So in terms of the backwards compatibility on the Xbox side, I've stated this multiple times of, PlayStation's backwards compatibility list is impressive. It's really awesome to see that a lot of the games are going to carry over, but it looks like the bare minimum compared to what Xbox has done, which is and them taking a little jabs at them, going, this is more than just boost mode. This is across all your games, across all your generations. Any game that's able to take advantage of these services will get them eventually. You know, we talked about Minecraft ray tracing not being there at launch. These things are coming, and when they hit that console, they're going to be really cool for gamers. Now, is this the end all be all? Is this like the coolest thing? Or like, I mean, it is the coolest thing. Is this thing going to sell units? No, but it is that thing that Boomstick you talked about earlier. It's the other thing that just stacks on what is already a growing pile of why Xbox is becoming more and more or convincing players more and more that they're the platform to be on. It's just it's just literally, you know, chipping away at that. When you see things like the Bethesda purchase, when you see things like built-in ray tracing, when you see backwards compatibility, you see the forward compatibility with hardware, these are all, at the end of the day, things that stack up to why you should be in this ecosystem, and the assurance that when the next Xbox Series console comes out, that these games you're playing right now and looking forward to right now will be safe. And that's the really cool thing.
Yeah,
I think the summary of that is basically, it is not a backwards compatibility is not a system seller, but it is is something that keeps you in the ecosystem. Yeah, it's harder for you to change.
Yep. I mean, like for me, when we got the news of the backwards compatibility for PlayStation, I was just like, all right, cool, I get to play my Bloodborne, right? Like that's like there's like at least those one or two games that you could breathe a sigh of relief on. But like, yeah, seeing some like original Xbox games get HDR is absolutely nuts to even, you know, think about that. So to me, this is a really cool step forward, and again, it's a reason why I think Xbox is really one of the more welcoming, the most welcoming ecosystem out of all three.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, again, it's an exciting time for gamers, because what I find to be the most interesting aspect, forget the fact that games that are old are going to get a boost, that are going to show advantages in the NVMe SSD, and they're going to get double the frame rate. What this tells me, and what I believe it says to many gamers, is that Microsoft cares about your investment into their platform. If you bought a game, they're basically telling you, yes, your games are going to work. Yes, your older games are going to have an advantage to playing them on a new console. So why don't you come on over? Let me get 3-Bit in, who's the special guest of today. 3-Bit, obviously Microsoft has been doing a lot of things right. And this is just another in that long line and a list of things that we probably would take for granted, but again, it's just added to the stacked deck, in my opinion. For you, are you happy to know that they really went out of their way? I mean, when you say 500,000 of anything, you're like, that's $500,000. That is a lot of time invested in making sure that these games work, but more importantly, work the best that they've ever worked before. And we're talking about games that go as far back as 2001. That's 19 years ago, according to my mathematics skills, which aren't great. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think it's amazing technology. It's really cool that it just shows the contrast, right, to the competition, and it's amazing that Microsoft is leading the front there. They don't have to. They didn't have to, like a lot of the points I keep hearing from you guys is they didn't have to do this stuff, but they are. They didn't have to fight Sony to have crossplay. They didn't have to have the value proposition Game Pass necessarily to what it is today. They didn't have to do a lot of those stuff. So I think for me, it's I play old games all the time, and I think it was Archimedes that was saying, you buy games, right? And sometimes you don't have time to play it, and that happens to me all the time, where I'll buy a game and I'll just forget I bought it and get busy. So yeah, I'm really excited for it. I think to bring in another point to what's going on is a majority of like PC players, right? they when they get a new PC, they don't lose access to that game just because you got a new PC, and you shouldn't lose access to the titles you get just because you get new hardware. So I'm glad Sony and Microsoft are leading on that front. And then those days are disappearing a little bit, especially with the architecture being based on x86 architecture, right? And to me, if you look at the top 10 games that are being played right now are old titles, like GTA 5 or Minecraft. So I think backwards compatibility is for sure important to the industry, and to me, it's very important because I play more old games than anything, and I think the argument that old games do not matter is just kind of foolish to me. You can you can have your opinion and say, hey, I don't really play old games, I only play new games. But it's just cool. You're preserving the gaming history. A lot of people go back and play like N64 games. My girlfriend, she plays like Zelda still, So I think it's very impressive, and I'm glad that someone is focusing on backwards compatibility, sort of forcing other people to look into it at least. So yeah, I think the value proposition for backwards compatibility is amazing. The catalog of games that are being upgraded to 60 frames, like Mr. Badbit was saying, it's going to be great. I think some of the games that are being bumped up to 60 frames per second so far has been titles that have unlocked frame rates. So it's going to be really interesting to see what goes forward with the smart delivery program on addition to the games that they already have upgraded just purely by backwards compatibility. What other games will they focus on to bump it even further to take advantage of the velocity architecture? So I'm excited. It's good stuff.
Yeah, no, it certainly is, and again, it's. I like that you brought into the conversation preserving these games. That's something that we need more of. It would be a shame to lose some of these games that we grew up with and never be able to see them again. And Microsoft is allowing you to for not only these games to exist, but to exist on new platforms that are games that are some as old as 19 years. It is extremely impressive, and if you wanted to know who's responsible or who's the lead over at Microsoft, her name is Peggy Lowe. She is the compatibility program lead on Xbox, and she has been doing a bang up job over there. I mean, I know that it's a name that you probably have never heard of. I didn't know who she was until I read this article. But it's good to start seeing some of the people behind the scenes. Now, VJ, for you, we know, I want to go to you. I want to go to you for your final opinion on this, because obviously, depending on who you ask, for many aspects of this generation, there are a tremendous amount of people that, again, poo-pooed backwards compatibility. When it was a thing on Xbox, obviously there was a running narrative that who plays old games. Well, obviously now that it is available on Sony, everyone plays old games, which I think is fantastic. Now we just need to see Nintendo kind of follow suit and stop having us pay for the same games 3 times. Even though I'm a Nintendo nerd, I constantly do that. But this is great. This is great for people who have, I have 1,000 games on my 14 terabytes. And I know that when maybe I can't get all 14 terabytes onto my Series X, but I can move them back and forth from my hard drive if I want to. And the fact that I know that some of the games that I know and love, like for instance, a Republic Commando on the OG Xbox, that is a game that a lot of people did not play, and would be absolutely amazing to see it run at 60 frames per second, to see it get a bump in graphics, because it's a classic Star Wars tale that a lot of people that really passed on. And I can go on. Ninja Gaiden. Are we ever going to get a new Ninja Gaiden? I don't know, but I know that I can go and play Ninja Gaiden Black on my Series X, and it's going to look and run absolutely incredible. For you, how important is backwards compatibility? But more importantly, what are your thoughts on how Microsoft handled it?
I think the panel did a really good job of, excuse me, of covering a lot of this. So I'll have a go. No doubt, this panel, especially you, Boom, and everybody in the chat, have invested heavily in Xbox, and I think it's probably around 100 million. I guess Xbox players that have done so over the. I'm really sorry. Excuse me a second. Over the last 2 decades, since I would say as far back as the original Xbox was released, or if you're about to purchase an Xbox Series X this gen, this upcoming gen, it doesn't matter if you paid like $400 or $500 for a console, and it's regardless of the fact if you've bought one game or 1,000 games, or even if you've just paid $1 to try out Game Pass. I think we or you and all of us count at the end of the day. It was really interesting because I had the privilege of sitting opposite Dealer in King David the other day on Four Guys with Quarters, and we were chatting about this. I think the important fact here is that the maturity of the Xbox's backwards compatibility program or system, or whatever you want to call it, and the ease in which consumers can interpretate it is definitely, even though Sony have come out somewhat to demonstrate what it can do, I still feel that the Xbox explanation, interpretation, and the transparency of it, I should say, is far more competent and clearer than PlayStation's at this stage. Microsoft, you have to look, historically have always been a software company, and their ethos has been you've got your creative freedom, but make sure that you're not set up for failure and for the future. In this instance, Microsoft's sort of deep-lying experience in historically being a software company, having to ensure backwards compatibility since the 90s, right, between old and new versions of the software that they've released and new software packages that are going onto the market, has served them incredibly well. I think that knowledge and those people that are in the background that aren't mentioned should get a tip of the hat. And then you look at Sony. In my experience, are fundamentally an electronics company and have been a very, very good one. But their ethos is design hardware and software with creative freedom and embrace bravery, embrace failure, don't fear it. Both approaches have their pros and cons and have to be managed. And if you just look at the PlayStation 3, although technically it was revered, but it was somewhat impractical, and that's shown today, right? Showed that Sony still needed to understand the evolving longer-term nature and future purpose of proofing software, whether it's just utility software that we use to run in their everyday lives, whether it's expenses or a business, or even if it's entertainment software. And I think that's something that's shown that Sony have lacked. But both companies, you have to look up, are founded in very different parts of the world with incredibly contrasting cultures. So Sony themselves need to be invested in maintaining, retaining their communities and subscribers. And as somebody mentioned, is the historic nature of what it is, of preserving all of this content. And in this particular instance, Xbox have shown them the way, if not the light. And PlayStation fans should be grateful. If not, just simply acknowledge the fact. And I've got loads more to say, Boom, but some podcasts have actually implemented stopwatches and limited me to just 5 minutes per answer. Hello?
Yeah, I can't hear.
So, yeah, sorry about that. I muted actually myself. We actually love when you go on a rant, VJ, because you bring a lot of real thought, perplexing knowledge to the conversation, and we definitely love the way that sometimes you do go along a down path. But again, this is a conversational podcast, and we don't have stop meters here, so obviously, you are free to finish your point if you'd like.
No, I'm absolutely good, Boom. Sorry, my voice is a bit funny, so I'll just stop there and maybe save some more for next time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, not a problem. Listen, folks, I want to say, first of all, I want to say a big thank you to the 850 plus people that tuned in. I want to apologize for the technical hiccups. It was well beyond my control. Unfortunately, it wasn't on my end. It was on YouTube. But again, if you did miss it, if you were here and you kind of tuned out, you can get the full audio as soon as it goes live on YouTube. It will not have any of those hiccups because this audio is recorded directly into YouTube. So you won't hear any of the technical issues. You'll hear us talking about it, but thankfully you won't be bothered by the clipping or the botting that goes on because it does record directly into YouTube, so that should not be an issue if you were here and you left. Of course, I want to thank the outrageous amount of super chats that continue to come in. It is honestly very humbling to know that you find this program and many of the programs I do worthy enough of your hard-earned money. And real quick, before we get on out of here, let me just thank a couple of people. We have Tommy Hatcher drops a very generous $5 super chat. Says take on Yakuza. Oh, he says, I guess he's talking about Review Tech USA's take on Yakuza was full-on fanboy narrative. It has absolutely nothing to do with the power of either consoles. How dumb to make, and he drops another one to continue his point. Another $5 super chat says to say that after starting the graphical differences is 4K 30 versus 1440 30. The Dragon engine is trash and needs to be said. And it needs to be said. I mean, listen, I look. I'll put it to this way. I think the best way to describe it is this. And I saw like a lot of rhetoric with the Dirt 5 IGN conversation. If you think it looks bad on the Series X, you have to ask yourself, how bad is it going to look on the PlayStation 5 if one console is significantly more powerful than the other? So we have to, I think at some point, we have to remove the consoles with an S. That means the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox One Series X out of the conversation. And we have to bring up what the developer did to make said game look that way. Yes. Are these consoles powerful? Yes. Are they going to make these games look and run better? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, the software has to be at the forefront of design. And if it has design flaws, these consoles will show that. And it's not because of the Series X, it's just not a good, powerful console, or because it's the PlayStation 5, it's less powerful. It's the developer. So before we start getting the torches and pitchforks for these consoles, let's understand that this comes at the core of the conversation, a design issue with potentially Dirt 5, with potentially Yakuza Like a Dragon. So I don't know what Rich was talking about. I have to watch his video. I normally like him. Every now and again, he seems that he does things for clicks. And I mean, listen, I suppose we've all done it. I don't on this program. I know he has. And I think that I have to see it for myself. But if he is trying to spin this in it's an Xbox Series X problem, then he should be ashamed of himself because he knows better. He's a bit of a tech expert. So to spin that seems very clicky to me. And again, I'll say it to him. If he's not listening to this small program, but if he was, I would tell him to his face, shame on you for that, Rich. You know better, and you're much better than that. But the last super chat comes in from our very good and generous friend Kay Asante. Drops a very generous $5 super chat. This is greeting panel. I can't wait for someone to eventually document a Microsoft BC process from the little known. It's next level virtual machine tech genius. Yeah, it certainly is, dude. And it's going to be interesting to hear more. I cannot wait for this to get into the hands of us, the gamers, so we can actually try it and really get out there on social media and be like, oh my God, you're not going to believe I played this old game and it was amazing. But let's get into the outros. And I believe we lost someone. I think we lost Mr. Badbit. I'm not sure if he had to go, but listen, I'll do his outro and as we wait for him to pop in or not. Mr. Badbit is a part of this program because not only is he a gamer, but he brings a Sony perspective to the conversation, but he does it in a way that I definitely appreciate. I think a lot of people on this panel appreciate, as well as many people in the community. So if you are a fan of his work, head over to Badbit Gaming on YouTube and give him a sub. Obviously, and if you want to continue the conversation, follow him on Twitter at Mr. Badbit, and I think you're going to enjoy his works. Next up, and now we'll go to our special guest, 3-Bit. First of all, dude, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Hopefully you had a great time. Again, apologize for the technical issues that the program had. Do me a favor, brother. Tell everyone about where they can find you on social media, but also check out your insanely awesome YouTube channel.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. It's always a pleasure getting to hear from the rest of the crew. And you guys can follow me on Twitter. It's the VGHD. And then on YouTube, it's the Video Games HD. And as a lasting thought, I just want to say to to the developers, just be nice. Be nice to the developers. I'm friends with a lot of different developers in the industry, and we're all, at the end of the day, it's all about entertainment, and we are very passionate about it. So just be respectful of each other.
Yeah, you know what? I love that. I love that comment, because now, if you don't know, he does work, and I'm talking about 3-Bit, does work in the gaming industry, and in the development aspect of it. And it's great to hear from you on, with your points, but it's also great for you to say that, because a lot of the times we get caught up in our feels. And because, unfortunately, this is the keyboard cowboy, universe, we feel that we can say whatever we want with no repercussions. Folks, listen, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. I say it at the end of every one of my shows. It's okay to be constructive. It's okay to have criticism on something that you like or you dislike, but doing it constructively is always important. And if you are someone that uses all caps, your point, no matter how good it is going to be moot, because no one's going to want to read it. No one's going to want to take time to hear what you have to say, because you are literally yelling at said person. So don't do that. But let's go to Archimedes next. Archimedes, first of all, brother, I want to thank you so much for being here every week. I'm glad to say that I have been a part of your YouTube journey, and it has been an honor to have you a part of this show. But to be honest with you, you have grown in ways that I don't even think you expected. And that's because you put out tremendously well-detailed content. So do me a favor, brother. Tell everyone about where they can follow you on social media, but more importantly, subscribe to your outstanding YouTube channel.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Boom, and thank you for the outstanding compliment. You really have inspired me to start my own channel. Brought me onto your shows, and in our discussions in the DMs and so on, you always said, "Dude, you're so full of opinions. You should do that." And that really got me into doing and starting my YouTube channel when the initial lockdown started, and it's been an amazing journey. I want to thank everyone for the support who has subbed. And if you are interested in a commentary YouTube channel, it's not a news channel. I don't cover the daily news. I put out about one video per week where I cover and discuss a certain aspect of the video game industry. And if you are interested in that, go over. It's at Boxenberger. And you can also find me on Twitter, PlayStation Live, Xbox Live, PlayStation Network, and Xbox Live, everywhere, Boxenberger.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for that, brother. Super appreciate you being here. Joe, I gave you a tremendous outro because you deserve it. Yeah, I did, because I wasn't sure if you had to bounce or not, but you're here. Why don't you tell people about the PlayStation Nation, known as, of course, your incredible YouTube channel?
So first and foremost, I think it's StreamYards. I think StreamYards was the culprit today.
They might have been.
I had to help my mother with something. A big package came in, and then I came up here and I thought the internet crashed. I mean, it looks like everything's good now. We have some amazing things, and I just want to be so thankful to this community, my community, all the communities out there that are positive. The last few months of the Trophy Room of PlayStation podcast have been absolutely incredible. So we have, whether it's growth, whether it's the awesome community members popping in, we've had a tremendous journey. Next week is going to be the biggest announcements that we've made as a podcast. And so I want to thank everybody for being with us on this journey. This week's show isn't about the UI, because literally as the show went live, Sony decided, hey gang,
Love it.
Let's go fuck with Joe. So this week's episode, we talk about the weird partnership between Burger King, PlayStation. We talk about Spider-Cat, the only spider cat that matters. And all that other, it is actually pretty awesome. All that other good PlayStation-y goodness. And we give also, like always, a good couple of shout outs to Xbox as well. So go check out the Trophy Room of PlayStation podcast. And Monday, make sure you're following at Mr. Badbit on Twitter. Make sure you're following PS Trophy Room on Twitter, because I've literally worked all the last 2 weeks on this moment.
Nice.
So
we're looking forward to it. Obviously,
Great.
the hard work has paid off, Joe, and I can't wait to hear what you're doing behind the scenes. It's going to be
show you
very
guys.
interesting. Yes, we're looking forward to it.
Sec.
Yeah, well, obviously he's on mute, so let's get to VJ. VJ, first of all, brother, thank you so much for being here. Obviously, your points are always well detailed, well thought out, and well researched. So we certainly appreciate what you bring to this particular program and what you bring to every program. Tell everyone where they can reach out to you on social media, but more importantly, tell everyone what other shows you're on.
Sure. Speaking of technical difficulties, just my apologies to the chat panel and yourself, Boom. My voice is not quite as lubricated as it normally is. And, sorry about that. And just wanted to touch on something else. As I said, I had the privilege of I'm on Four Guys with Quarters with Clowns every Tuesday as a panel member, and I was fortunate enough to be on that channel with King David and with Dealer. And if anyone's interested, I broke down the whole Yakuza Like a Dragon topic, and I pretty sensibly, and so that people can understand that don't believe in all the noise and the silliness that's going on. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it's not just because I'm a huge fan of the Yakuza or Judgment series. You can also find me here every Thursday. Sorry, Boom, I'm losing my train of thought a little bit on Xbox Factor podcast. I'm on Green Pass Gaming on Sundays, and I also help out on Stubbs Gaming on Wednesdays. So you can find me, or you'll bump into me, no doubt. And again, Boom, thanks so much for having me on this channel and allowing me to speak my truth.
Well, it's our pleasure. Obviously, we try to bring people into the fold that are going to bring some interesting points to a conversation. I believe that you've done that. And again, obviously, folks, I want to thank everybody for being here. I did get everybody. Oh no, Zemi Games, you're on mute, brother.
How dare you?
Oh my! I almost.
How dare you? I'm
the
so
cog
insulted.
that keeps the show going almost got gypped an outro. Do me a favor, brother. Tell everyone about, more importantly, where they can follow you on social media. Check out your outstanding YouTube channels with an S, and also tell them about your Twitch stream that we're going to be doing this Friday once again to attempt to kill everyone in the game that we're playing.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Boom related, I do have 2 YouTube channels. The first one's called Zemi Games, where I post a bunch of gaming, video content, such as gaming news, tutorials, and reviews. I also have a second YouTube channel that I have not been working on in the least bit, but I still mention it every time in this show, which is called Zemi Eats, which is a food-related YouTube channel. I do like food reviews and like cooking tutorial recipe videos over there, and I'm wanting to do more content, but man, it's hard. Time is hard to find. And then I also have a Twitter. You guys can follow me over there at Zemi Games, and I always like to mention this in every show. If you heard something during today's show that I said that you agree with, or even if you disagree with it, I always love and welcome any DMs. My DMs are always open. I love interacting and talking to different people in the community to hear different opinions. I think that that's a great way for all of us to grow, is to hear and learn different opinions and different outlooks on multiple topics. And then of course I also do have a Twitch channel. This Friday, you know what time we're going to be streaming, Boom?
I believe it's 1 o'clock.
1 p.m. Yep. Me and Boom, we will be on my Twitch to stream some more Man of Medan, where we are currently trying to kill everyone in the game for a tasty 100 gamer score achievements.
Yeah, we saved everyone. We got the best ending possible.
We did.
Now we have to murder everyone. So we're doing everything wrong. It is hilarious trying not to hit, press the correct button.
Oh, it's great. Like the outcomes, like the audio, like that we're getting off of these people, just the worst things are being said to different people, and the greatest responses are coming back. I mean, it's great. Ton of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So tune into his Twitch channel, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday afternoon. Real quick, another super chat came in from Daniel Muller. Drops an outstanding $5 super chat and says Nintendo's worth is $49.7 billion with a B. Well, at least he says, well, at least possible. Wow, that is they're worth. Listen, no one's buying Nintendo. Nintendo will never sell, but man, almost $50 billion that's saying something about Nintendo. But listen, folks, I want to thank everybody for being here. We still have almost 500 people here for the outros, and that really means a lot to us. We're glad that you hang around to hear the not just about me, because at the end of the day, I didn't build this channel for me. I built this channel for the community, and having these fine folks here every week, it's my pleasure. In fact, it's my honor to push their content even harder than I push my own, because that is what you're supposed to do. At least that is what I do. And I'm going to close out the show with something that's important to me. Hopefully, one day it will be important to you. And it's something that my dad taught me when I was a kid. And I believe now more than ever, we need these two things. And he used to say, son, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, and I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. We'll see you next week on the newest episode of the Xbox Factor podcast. Take care, everyone, and have a great day.